don't know how Scott Jennings do it. I'll be in jail before 9 a.m. I heard he the only reason why people watch CNN. Because I'm telling you, if it was just that black lady up there running her damn mouth, oh, Lord.
Let's talk about Scott Jennings, the CNN poster boy for white privilege and his energy. Because that's the real issue, his attitude. Every time he opens his mouth on CNN, it's like he's auditioning for Smuggest Man Alive, or for the position of White House press secretary. And Lev Parnas clocked it. The father of our most beloved Aaron Parnas. The posture, the tone, the micro smirk that says he thinks he's smarter than everyone else in the room. He postures. He performs condescension. And it's not just the interruptions. It's the side comments, the little passive-aggressive murmurs under his breath, the eye rolls, the muttered wow or sure while someone else is speaking. It's rude. It's like his parents didn't raise him to have manners. It's the junior high energy, where he can't wait his turn, so he leaks disdain. He walks in with that I already won body language, even when he's objectively wrong. Especially when he's wrong. There is something uniquely unbearable about a man who can be corrected in real time and still sits there like, yeah, I ate that. Watch how he interrupts mid-sentence. Watch how he turns every topic into a smug lecture. And here's the trick he lives on. Redirection. He throws you a loaded question, you answer it, now you're in his frame. Now you're off your point. Now he's driving. So here's the real playbook. For anyone who ever sits across him, don't answer his questions. Answer it with a question. Flip it back on him. Redirect him. Because when Scott Jennings is the one being questioned, you can literally see the irritation creep in.
Well, what's up, family? And that's dumb what he's saying because he's basically saying use reverse psychology in regards of answer a question with a question. But obviously that shows ignorance because if you got to answer somebody with a question, then that means you don't even know what you're talking about because you need full understanding, which then leads into Scott Jennings being factual and phenomenal he is when it comes to him giving political commentary. The ball is still going to be in his court because he's going to have to school you to give the context since you want to answer a question with a question, but don't answer a question. So obviously you have no value in that conversation. So what he said is dumb as hell. I wish he'd take the Yankees hat off because it makes it even more sad because that's my team. But we got to talk about this hilarious meltdown, right? From Julie Roginsky, right? Because she's the Democrat strategist, CNN contributor, all that. Basically, one of those folks who's supposed to be sharp on TV, pushing the left's talking points and holding it down in debates. But here's the thing. Every time she ends up on the same panel as Scott Jennings, who's a Republican strategist, straight shooter, doesn't back down, she gets cooked. And I mean cooked to the point where it's not even a fair fight. Scott hits her with the straight facts, plain logic, and she can't keep up. And now she's mad. And she's mad at herself for not stepping up her arguments, not mad at her own weak takes. Nah, she's mad at him for making her look bad on TV, on live TV at that. Like, sis, it's a debate. And if you step into the ring and get bodied, that's not your opponent's fault. That's you not being ready. But instead of just eating the L, learning something, coming back stronger, she's now lashing out, throwing little fits, acting like Scott somehow doing her dirty just because he knows how to dismantle a weak argument. She can't substantiate her point. And this ain't just a one-time thing. This has happened multiple times, which we'll get into in this video. Get this video a big thumbs up. If you're new to the family, subscribe and join the family. If you're already part of the family, appreciate you for rocking with me. But rather it's Abby Phillips' dying show or any other dusty CNN segment, every time they clash, she ends up looking frustrated and flustered. And now it's gotten to the point where she just walked off, quit mid-debate because Scott gave her that verbal spanking again. And just imagine going on national television, getting waxed in a discussion and then blaming the person who out-argued you. And that's where we're at now. So I got a clip from back in the day where she got visually tight after Scott called her out, straight up couldn't handle it. And then I got the latest one, the one that made her finally tap out. So yeah, let's get right into that. I'm going to run that because I want you guys to see it for yourself because this type of stuff that shows how weak some of these so-called strategists are, especially on the far left when it comes to the Democratic Party, when they're not in their echo chambers spewing the same talking points from scripts but really can't substantiate their point. Check it out.
you're going to have substantial reductions in violence, substantial reductions in murder, substantial reductions in carjackings, and people are generally going to have to feel like they can walk around and not be under threat all the time. Now, some of this could be statistical, some of it could just be what the local residents are telling him about their quality of life. Will it be solved in 30 days? Probably not, but they're already making substantial progress. They've had over 100 arrests since August the 7th when he first brought this up. 43 people were arrested last night. Bad people are being taken off the streets. Illegal weapons are being taken off the streets. So they're already having some success. My advice on this as a punditry matter would be, well, let's see where we are at the end of 30 days. How much progress have they made? And then Congressman can make an assessment at that point about whether this is working, and maybe it would help to extend it a little bit.
I guess I'm old enough, Scott, to remember when you were appalled, as the rest of us were, on January 6th, when he wouldn't.
Because January 6th happened, should we not enforce the law today?
Excuse me.
Do you want murders today?
Let me finish, Scott. I know
January 6th equals no enforcement
Scott, I know
of
you
mercy.
hate talking about
This is a silly argument.
No, let me finish before you make a point about a silly argument.
It'll be silly, but go ahead.
No, what's silly is you sitting down with Mitch McConnell over Chick-fil-A and lamenting how Donald Trump was putting all of you, including Mitch McConnell, in harm's way. But I guess now you're so.
I wasn't in harm's way. I was in Louisville.
No, your then boss, your friend Mitch McConnell certainly was. But now
January 6th was a bad day.
Can I finish?
Murders are also bad.
Can I finish?
I want murders solved.
Can I finish?
Can you just let her finish?
Scott's gonna.
Well, if she wants to come out here and take pot shots at me, I'm not going to allow it.
I know
it's a stupid argument. I'm not going to allow it.
Scott, just let her finish. I don't even know that we've even heard the argument
yet.
No,
we heard it. We heard every day.
You were denying. So go ahead,
Scott,
Julie.
I know you're thirsty for that Senate seat, but let me finish. What I'm going to say.
I mean, you allow this every night.
Scott, just give me 1 second here. Let's just let her finish, please.
Okay.
Just 1
Listen,
second.
I know you've got the picky thing going on, but here's what I'm going to say.
What are you thirsty for? Some kind of relevance out here?
No, actually, Scott.
I mean, I don't know what you do for a living.
Really? I elect a lot of Democrats. Scott, but let me finish my thought here, please. Can I just finish what I was about to say, which is that on January 6th.
So, boom. What you saw right there is exactly how every conservative should handle these tired deflection tactics. Liberals who love to pull out what they're when they're losing a debate, right? These deflection tactics. It's like clockwork. The second they start drowning in logic, here comes the, what about January 6th? Or now the new flavor of the month is, what about Epstein? Like somehow throwing out random emotionally charged buzzwords is supposed to be a mic drop. Like, nah, fam. That's not how this works. You're talking about crime in DC, and all of a sudden they want to pivot to January 6th like it's some kind of Uno reverse card. And it's not. It has nothing to do with the current topic. Same thing with Epstein. They'll toss his name into any conversation just to stir up some chaos or derail the facts at hand. And it's a distraction tactic, plain and simple. And it's not debate, it's dodgeball. And the way Scott Jennings handled it was perfecto, because that's exactly how every conservative should respond. Call it out immediately, shut it down, and don't get them an inch to spin the narrative. And you don't have to sit there and politely listen to someone spew propaganda that has zero connection to the topic. See, a lot of times, family, and this is a life lesson that I understand, people will study you, right? And in this case, she obviously didn't study Scott Jennings to prepare her argument, let alone know who she was debating. But the point is, people will study you and use the principles in which you stand on as a way to lure you in to destroy you. So you may be a person, in this case, I'm going to use the current event with Don Lemon, who got fired from CNN, as we know that he's a former CNN employee who spews divisive rhetoric and always talking about the white supremacy, when I don't believe that we're in a race war, we're in a class war, because at the end of the day, we're actually being attacked. And it's mind-blowing to me, not to get off topic, but just to add the context, Don Lemon is actually vouching for the party that actually promoted slavery for blacks, which was the Democratic Party and all things like that, and the KKK, as we know that Abraham Lincoln was a republic, and he actually freed the slaves. And I just wanted to add that context, but it shows you how backwards things are when the Democratic Party will spew propaganda, act like they have your best interest, and then sell you out when they get the position to hold power, in which they was doing in the first place, just to tell you anything you want to hear. It's nothing like a bad girlfriend or boyfriend who just want to get in your pants or deal with you for their benefit, and they're in a relationship for the benefit they could get off you, but actually don't care about you. But what I'm saying is, people will study you, and they will see what you stand for, and they will actually walk you into a trap that ends up hurting you and benefiting them based off their narrative, because they know you stand for, let's say, for example, with Don Lemon. He knew Christians are passive. We believe in turning the other cheek for the most part. But the thing is, Jesus was a warrior too. God was a warrior too. And at the end of the day, fighting for peace sometimes isn't always as peaceful as turning another cheek, but also redirection taking place in the form of leadership while also modeling the good and being like the higher power, being like God, being like Jesus, and also understand that you're fighting for the greater good. That's why martyrs exist. But Don Lemon took that amongst some studying the principle of Christians to understand, oh, they won't do anything. They're just the Christians stand on being nice and welcoming all people and approaching all people. When in all honesty, they should have did what my church do. Usually they have two men in the back. Yes, all is welcome while the service is going on, but don't be disrespectful, trying to take over service or walk and try to start interviewing and question the congregation in the middle of the priest in this form, because I'm Catholic. But in this way, the priest is doing the service, reading scripture, and resonating it to this current day and time on how God wants us to live so we can be spiritually enriched to go out and be the light and salt of earth, to be better people, working on ourselves spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and so forth, being part of the community to uplift each other. But when you come in there and you start trespassing to the point where you be disrespectful and then they ask you to leave and you still stand there, then he also stood on the principle to know, oh, well, you are a Christian, you know to turn the other cheek. So you won't sit there and hold me accountable. You will allow this to happen. And I know I could get away with it. In this case, this is Don Lemon mentality, understanding the principle of a Christian. Now, Christians have to understand you have to stand strong sometimes. And sometimes you have to understand that you have to let people know, because in this life, people will play with you if they know that you are a good person. They will abuse you, misuse you, and sit there and take advantage of you, and then chew you up and spit you back out. So that's what I'm saying. People will study the principles in which you stand for and use it as a narrative to control you and hurt you based on what they know about you and what you morally stand for. In this case, that's what happened with Don Lemon and the Christians within the church that he barged into. Okay? So I say all that to say that is what the Democratic Party do. They stand on humanitarian rhetoric, but at the end, there is nothing humanitarian what they do besides exhausting resources in the community, allowing crime to run rampant, or allowing illegals to run rampant with these sanctuary city policies, not working with federal law enforcement, not allowing the local law enforcement in the states like Minneapolis, Philadelphia, Chicago to work with federal officers to get illegals out of this country who wasn't supposed to be here in the first place. But they're here saturated, taking over the housing market, sitting on welfare, getting food stamps and all these things that the American taxpayer pay for, and work hard and get taxed out of their paychecks while they have no social security or nothing, but continue to exploit the system. And that's what I mean. Scott Jennings understands the assignment and he handled it perfectly. You're not about to use me as a conservative and me standing for law enforcement, in this case with their argument with Washington, D.C., and try to sit there and use it in regards of, oh, January 6th, the whole propaganda of Trump actually incited people and his supporters to storm the Capitol because he lost the election, which isn't true, because we know Nancy Pelosi came out and said she took full responsibility. And not to mention that in a video clip that was spewed on a mainstream media network, they actually twisted, using a form of AI or whatever, Donald Trump words and said, we are going to fight like hell, when he really said, we're going to walk in peace. We're going to protest in peace and march up the Capitol Hill. He has said nothing about fighting or inciting any type of warlike mentality to the supporters that supported him when he felt as though that the election wasn't fair, flat out, when it came to him and Biden back in 2020. I'm correct. So that January 6th stuff has to go. Stay on topic. Stop using the principles in which I stand for as a conservative, as a Republican strategist, as in law and order, to use that in regards of a Uno reverse card, as if I stand for a party that actually is the party of control, only want law enforcement to control people and terrorize people, because that's actually the Democrats. Let me know if you get value from this video. Get this video a big thumbs up. But let me know you guys' thoughts down in the comments below. But anyway, to add further to it, this is how you're supposed to handle it perfectly with Scott Jennings, right? And it shows you, if we're talking about local crime or policy or anything current and someone brings up a riot that happened 3 years ago, or a billionaire pedophile that has no bearing on the subject, shut it down. Don't let them shift the goalpost just because they're out of ammo. That's exactly what Scott did. Cut the nonsense off and brought it back to reality. And that latest debate, brutal. She tried to make some claim about troops coming to Minneapolis. And not only was she wrong, she was historically off the mark by a mile. And Scott corrected her so smoothly, so clearly that it was actually painful to watch. And it wasn't even disrespectful, it was just facts. Slapping fantasy in real time. Like, that's what happens when you come into a debate relying on emotion and vibes and identity politics, because we know the Democratic Party has been known to use identity politics and activist movements to stir up chaos, to allow their corruption to take place, because they use crime as a way to justify nonprofits taking place, or reform groups, or all these different type of programs, where then they use it as a way to pass bloated policy where they get kickbacks from. It's the same thing with war, right? When countries go to war, obviously it's bad because lives are, unfortunately passing away. There's bloodshed. It's not good for no people from a morally standpoint, but it deals with power and money, right? Money, power, and respect. And when countries go to war, it costs money and resources. And that's just what it is. But look, Scott came with the facts and the receipts. He got humbled. He humbled her. I should say, not he got humbled. She got humbled, and she got humbled hard. So yeah, take a look at how it went down, because this was a masterclass on how to handle nonsense when it shows up in the middle of a serious conversation. Check it out.
Listen to Scott and you listen to all this rhetoric coming out of the Republican Party. These are the same people that defended opening fire hoses on protesters in the 60s on the Selma Bridge. I mean, these are people who consistently
I think those were Democrats, Julie. Just FYI, those are Democrats. Those were Democrats in the 60s.
Scott, people like you
that was your party.
Exactly that kind of behavior.
But thank you for reminding everybody that Democrats were against civil rights.
How about this, Scott? Why don't you let me finish and stop interrupting? Because clearly, whenever anybody tries
you're the
to
one that brought up
Democrats.
I agree with you. Democrats shouldn't have been against civil rights.
You're the person. Well, there you go. How about this, Scott? Why don't you continue talking, and I'll just sit here and listen to
you know
Go
what,
ahead.
guys?
I
think we all have each other's X handles where we can continue this conversation.
And there you have it, folks. Scott Jennings is honestly the greatest of all time when it comes to conservative voices on mainstream media. See, it's no different with Christians, as you've seen with Don Lemon, knowing that they'll turn the other cheek and they come off as soft. And people feel as though when you're soft, they can have their way with you. And it's no different with Republicans. But now, as you see that Scott Jennings is modeling that approach, where Republicans have to be more just as aggressive as Democrats. Not in a violent way, but you have to stand your ground and stand firm, because at the end of the day, nobody will know what you stand for, and they'll feel like they can have their way, because if you don't stand for something, you fall for anything, but they'll stand for something and impose it on you based on the principles they know about you to sit there and control you. That's just a fact. So my thing is, it's funny because Julie what's her name? Julie Roginsky, whatever her name is, she sitting there mad, but she's using the Victim Olympics, tugging on the heartstrings of viewers as a way to deliver her rhetoric. And what's wrong with Scott Jennings responding with some humor in regards of chuckling or laughing? So she don't like the same type of energy reciprocated back to her, but she can use a humorous, extreme, exaggerated way to tug on heartstrings. And what's wrong with him bringing his humor to the conversation? Nothing whatsoever. But it also shows you, as a Democratic strategist of her being that Julie Roginsky, it also shows that the Democratic Party don't want you to do anything unless they allow you to. And you either agree with them, you get on board, or you have a problem, or they have a problem. And as soon as you don't agree with them, you're out. You're outsy. You're done. You're ditto. So this dude is in hostile territory, with CNN being a mainstream liberal media outlet. He still comes out on top almost every single time. And I got to give him a round of applause for that, because that's not easy to do. Most conservatives either get cut off, get shouted down, or shut down, or start to try to play nice just to keep their seat at the table. Not Scott. He holds his own ground. He stays calm. He hits them with the facts and flips their own talking points right back on them like political Houdini. You know what I'm saying? It's beautiful to watch. And he doesn't just debate. He dismantles arguments. And listen, I totally get why Julie Roginsky is heated. Like when someone keeps making you look silly on national TV, that frustration builds. But instead of saying, yo, I got to come harder next time, she runs to the internet, writes this long, dramatic column that goes viral now, basically crying and throwing a tantrum, running into the Victim Olympics about how unfair it is that she keeps losing. And in that same column, she starts pushing the usual nonsense that Scott should be fired. But fired for what? For being good at debating? That's how you know it's not about fairness or facts with these people. It's about control, like I mentioned with the Democratic Party. Because when they can't win an argument and then they try to silence the person they can't beat, and then they throw hostile rhetoric at you, and they throw ad hominem attacks, straight up cancel culture tactics, all of that. And she's not alone because a bunch of liberals have been chirping about how Scott Jennings needs to be taken off CNN because they don't want to actually deal with him and they don't want the smoke. And they want echo chambers where everyone nods and claps their hands and no one pushes back. But Scott Jennings, he's not going anywhere. And that's exactly why they're mad. Because at the end of the day, majority of Americans, I could speak for, I'm speaking to the majority, not the minority, only watch CNN like myself for the sake of Scott Jennings. If he isn't there, those ratings are going to tank like hell. And you can forget CNN and the mainstream liberal media when it comes to CNN, that network more specifically. But I want you guys to see.
Watching CNN. Hear me out. If you don't know who this is, his name is Scott Jennings. CNN hired him to be the contrarian, to be the conservative, to be the Republican. The whole point of him being on the show is to be able to give the other side's perspective. But the problem with him is most of the time he's not doing that. See, what he does is more nefarious. What he likes to do is just deny any fact, and then when he says something, he wants you to prove what he say is wrong instead of him providing the fact that he's wrong, the facts to back up his argument. And I totally get it. Abby Phillips, her ratings are gonna tank if we all stop watching it. But I'm sorry, Abby, he needs to go. We need to make sure that CNN knows that he has to go. Scott Jennings needs to go. We need to stop watching shows of these toxic pundits.
Hi, everyone. Well, I wonder how many of you are also tired of CNN's hiring of Scott Jennings to give a conservative point of view. I don't mind conservative points of views, but this guy is a jerk. He obviously just wants a job in Trump's administration. All I can say is Scott Jennings should be fired. There are other conservatives they can hire. Indeed, I don't mind conservatives as long as they're reasonable. Jonah Goldberg, for example, is occasionally on the air, and he, like Scott Jennings, has a column in the LA Times.
And this is where it gets flat out embarrassing for these people because the way they're melting down over Scott Jennings just shows you how fragile their entire setup is. Dude is simply too good at making a conversation or making the conservative point. And not even some loud, disrespectful way, but just clearly, directly with logic, common sense. And they can't handle it because Julie Roginsky basically put her whole career on the line just to whine about the fact that she keep catching L's on national TV. She wrote this long, dramatic Substack post, like a full-on digital diary entry, where she's practically begging CNN to cancel Scott Jennings because she can't compete with him intellectually. Right? Where have we come to the point where we can have a difference of opinion, but have productive conversation to understand each other's perspectives, so we then can understand that to make the ultimate best decision, you have to look at things from different angles so you actually know what's the best interest of each other, even if we have a difference of opinion, but we can agree to disagree and walk away. But at the end of the day, when it comes to reality and it comes to results, it has to be one solution that's working effectively, right? And this is to tell you that the Democratic Party doesn't care if it's effective or not at the cost of Americans and American taxpayers. You need to get on board with them or not. They're going to dox you. They're going to get rid of you. And this is the sick mentality that needs to be getting rid of, because it's no way in hell that this mentality is going to help a country thrive. It has come to the point, these individuals and these old heads that you see on this clip right here that I just showed you with this yellow shirt from yesteryear, from dinosaurus year, believes that, oh, you should listen to me. And if not, the same way these Democrats do, then if you don't, we need to get rid of you. Well, who's to say that, okay, what if the roles reverse? A conservative feels as though, a Republican feels as though that Democrats should be getting rid of because they don't agree with what they're saying. But they know that most Republicans are Christians. They don't stand for obliterating or erasing the other individual because they agree to disagree. We understand that universally we all have unique purposes and different purposes in life, but the beauty of it is we can all bring our skills and God-given gifts together and help each other and point to each other for the best good of each other. And the reality is, when it comes to Scott Jennings being on CNN, some people are better together than apart. And if Abby Phillips think about, because in the name of Julie Roginsky, that they should get rid of Scott Jennings or CNN, guess what? Scott Jennings is going to be fine, but CNN is going to suffer. And I could tell you that for a fact. But one-sided conversations usually deal with a one-sided mind. And when you deal with someone who only one sided when it comes to doing what they want to do, is no difference from you being with somebody and they don't feel like there's no other way to grow and they don't have no more room to grow because they feel like they've grown just perfectly fine. They don't have to do no more work, when we all know that as long as you're on this earth, you have lifelong work to do as a Christian, as a believer, and you have a purpose set out to do in different seasons at different times and different years and different, different point in time of your life. There's always work to be done as long as you have air in your lungs. But one-sided people is no different between also you being in a relationship with someone and they stuck in their ways. This man in the yellow shirt, usually that's why I love talking to children or younger folks, because you can actually encourage them. You can actually have difference of opinion, because we know kids are bold, but older individuals is no point of talking to older folks because they already stuck in their way and they one-sided. And the results are showing their life. It will show in their relationships. The results will show how effectively and how they're not thriving in the way they should because they think one-dimensional. And a one-dimensional mindset only gets you stuck in one way and one lane. And at the end of the day, then you are basically limiting yourself and minimizing yourself to the capabilities you have. And they don't want to realize that, because not only is Scott Jennings showing them that through his articulation, through the humor, through the logic, through the straight shooter mentality, but also being able to give shots and give it back and give shots and take some in the form of entertainment. But I want to get to this Substack here that I'm talking about in regards to the whole matter, because she was crying like a baby. She was crying like a baby in regards to the matter. And it says here, CNN regular shreds Scott Jennings and network that elevates him probably about to be banned from CNN. Democrat strategist, CNN regular Julie Roginsky launched a ferocious public broadside against Scott Jennings, one of the network's most prominent conservative voices, in an attack she admitted will probably get her banned from future appearances. Roginsky unloaded on Jennings in a viral blog post, torching him for how he behaves and what he contributes, while also accusing CNN of promoting bad faith punditry. The pair, who both appeared on CNN Newsnight, have clashed on multiple occasions. She published a Substack on Monday. She openly acknowledged the professional risk of speaking out, starting with, "I'm fairly confident that this column will get me banned from CNN airwaves." Quote unquote, CNN once sold itself as the grown-up in the room. It was the network you turned to. The stakes got real. Sorry, family. The stakes got real. That reputation earned over decades was built on restraint, seriousness, and basic respect for viewers, she wrote. Which is why CNN's continual reliance on Scott Jennings is not just baffling, but corrosive to his brand. While backing the idea that the network should rightly platform conservatives, she accused Jennings of failing to engage in spirited debate and instead a performance. As she go on to say, on air, Jennings does not debate. He blathers. He talks over women with particular frequency, interrupts relentlessly, and treats panel discussions as contests of volume and obstinacy rather than an exchange of ideas. He mugs to the camera and rolls his eye while calling any fact he does not like a lie. It is performative obstruction, the cable news equivalent of flipping the board when you're losing the game, she wrote. Roginsky followed by arguing that CNN, in her words, quote unquote, once prided itself on fact checking in real time, but said the network now lets falsehoods linger in the air, unanswered as long as they deliver with sufficient bluster. And I find that very interesting because if you think about that, instead of saying, let me sharpen my arguments, Julia Roginsky could say, because iron sharpens iron, she obviously doesn't want to be a better debater and she sucks. And she want to run into the Victim Olympics and call for somebody's job to get fired. See, that's one thing. If someone is doing better than you, learn from them, but don't call for their job to get fired where they put food on the table for their family and take care of themselves. How evil can you be, right? And that's how badly she needed to get these tears off her chest. She admits it in this piece that will probably get her banned from CNN. Instead of saying, let me sharpen my arguments or let me bring better facts. Let's fire the guy who's making me look bad. That's the game now? So if CNN did get rid of Scott instead of her, bro, that network would collapse faster than it already is. Jennings is one of the few reasons conservatives even actually check in on CNN. He's literally the last thread of credibility they got left with right-leaning audiences. And Julie, let's be real, no one's tuning in for Julie. I didn't even know who she was until I covered this. And if she vanished tomorrow, no one would even notice. I mean, I've seen a couple clips of her, but you know, Scott Jennings get at anybody because they be ganging up on him, man. I said he be in that every CNN panel, Abby Phillips CNN panel, basically survival to the finish. So that's why I don't even pay her no mind to know who the hell she is until now, even more diving into this piece that she wrote running into the Victim Olympics. And look, but Scott, that's their guy, CNN, right? That's the guy that is basically accumulating the ratings. When it comes to right-leaning audiences, this is the guy, Scott. She's out here talking about how CNN used to be grown up in the room. The network people tuned to when things got serious. Like, girl, what? That CNN is long gone. That version died sometime around 2016 when Trump broke their brains and they decided to become full-time activists in suits. And you remember Fury, but mostly peaceful? Yeah, that line destroyed whatever credibility CNN had left. And now, after years of pushing narratives, spinning stories, and pushing propaganda, costing people lives, and they don't even care at the act of and acting like the PR wing of the DNC, they want to talk about respect for viewers. Nah, miss me with that. And then she accuses Scott of not debating but blathering. Like he's the one interrupting and playing games, which is hilarious because that's exactly what she and so many liberals do on these panels. She says he over talks women. He talks over women. But everybody on cable news talks over everybody. I'm confused. And it's the nature of those panels. The second someone starts making a good point, the other side panics and jump in. And what they bring up, January 6th. Every single time. The topic has nothing to do with it. What do you call that? That's not debate. That's deflection. That's exactly what she's accusing him of, but she does it herself. The projection here is wild because she calls Scott's style performative obstruction. Performative obstruction, family. That's what she calls it when you go up here. Let me make sure I call it out. Because she's saying all of this is performative. And when you look at it, because she called it baffling and instead performance. If you look at it, what's more performative than screaming about insurrections during a debate on gas prices? What's more obstructive than hijacking every conversation with, but Trump this, but Trump that, but Trump bad, orange man bad. Donald, what's up with the Trump derangement syndrome? Right? Every time you're losing, Julie, what's more, every time you're losing? It's a joke. And then she says, CNN lets falsehoods linger. That's what she had to say. They let falsehoods linger. As long as they're delivered with confidence. First of all, CNN is the king of letting nonsense slide when it fits their narrative. They want to push the propaganda, right? So I don't understand. I don't even know if she know the network that she works for, which is mind-blowing to me. And you look at that, it seemed like to me she calling out her own network she worked for in the name of trying to get Scott Jennings fired, but she's actually proving Scott Jennings' point of why he is so phenomenal at debating and basically obliterating and destroying these individuals for the simple fact of the falsehoods that linger in the air on her behalf as a liberal, right? Lunatic. I'm just being honest here. And the second Scott Jennings actually gets fact checked, even when he's right, like especially when he's right, that's what's crazy. He'll drop a stat, they'll hit him with the fact check graphic, but then you go dig into it and he was actually on point. So no, this ain't about facts. This ain't about conduct. This is about the fact that Scott Jennings keep pulling back the curtain, showing the audience the most of these liberals' talking points collapse under pressure, and now they're trying to cancel him for that. That's all this is when it came to her writing this whole piece right here and nonsense, right? And it's disgusting, right? It also models that when people don't agree with you, they should be held accountable because they have a difference of opinion. That's what you want to promote? In the name of a panel as an adult? You're acting like a child right now. So I don't want to hear it, but I want you guys to check out this next clip.
I mean, in a way, the two events that are happening tonight, the DOJ's actions and this judge's ruling, which seems to reinforce that people do have a right to record. They can actually be following ICE agents, recording them as long as they're not breaking any traffic laws. They're following at a safe distance. They're basically saying that is okay. And so for DOJ to then try to, it seems, criminalize that, how are they going to substantiate charges against these two men?
Well, I mean, that's a great speech. We don't know exactly what they're being investigated for. We have very few details about this based on what I've heard. There are conversations potentially going on with a grand jury in Minneapolis. And look, based on their public statements, it's pretty clear that, and based on the statements of officials at DOJ, it's pretty clear there is concern that these two guys have used their positions and their public statements to try to obstruct the execution of federal laws. Now, whether that rises to a crime, I don't know.
Can you give me an example?
Yeah,
An
where's
example?
that clarity?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think they've both made numerous public statements that have made it perfectly clear that they do not want federal laws to be enforced in
Such
Minnesota,
as?
and that they flatly said they don't want ICE there enforcing federal immigration laws. They
That's
both
not what they
said
said.
that. They have literally
That's
both
not-
said,
that's not what they
ICE,
said.
leave Minnesota. In
yeah,
fact, Tim
and-
Walz
and-
said we're on the third day of Gettysburg at one point.
He did not say that either. Okay.
When things looked really bleak, it was Minnesota's first that held that line for the nation on that July 3rd, 1863. And I think now we may be in that moment that the nation's looking to us to hold the line on democracy.
It's Democrats who have put Somali diaspora in Minneapolis at the center of their party and their state's politics. It's a small portion of the population. There is a bunch of fraud that goes on. And even Tim Walz has claimed that any investigation of this fraud is akin to white supremacy,
No,
which is
he
a
hasn't.
No, he
He has
never
not
said
claimed
that.
that.
He
He
never
has
said
not
that.
said
He
that.
has said
He
that.
had never.
This is what happens when your own federal government wages war against you. This is what happens when they target communities for their own benefit. This is what happens when they scapegoat. And this is what happens when they no longer hide the idea of white supremacy, the idea of white supremacy, the idea of white supremacy, the idea of white.
Yeah, so what you're seeing here is the same tire playbook liberals always run when they get exposed in real time and can't keep up in the arena of actual ideas. They start crying about the unfair platforms on networks that already lean in their favor. Like, seriously, you got CNN, a network where the entire structure is designed to lean left, especially on shows like Abby Phillips, where it's like 5 people versus Scott Jennings, and he still runs the table. And instead of being like, wow, maybe we should bring stronger arguments, the complaint is y'all aren't fact checking him enough. Like, nah, you're letting him lie, but you're smacking him down harder. As if Scott's not already under the microscope every time he opens his mouth, as you guys can see. And they fact check this dude so aggressively, they start issuing fact checks, fake fact checks, just to try and trip him up. And somehow that's still not enough for Julie Roginsky. She wants the whole show rigged harder. Like, imagine getting beat in a race and even after starting 10 feet ahead and then yelling at the referee that your opponent had better shoes. That's what it is. And then it gets even more petty because she starts calling Scott Jennings an insecure little boy. Says he edit clips on social media to make himself look better and whines that he's too scared to post full segments. Like, who's really insecure here? You are the one writing a whole blog post sobbing about a guy who keeps beating you in debates. That's not scrimp. That's a breakdown. She even goes so far as to question what value he brings to the network. Like he's just some filler conservative they tossed in. Like, nah, let's be real. Scott Jennings is the only reason half the people even watch CNN anymore. He brings the smoke, the clarity. He's actually entertaining. And meanwhile, what does she bring? Seriously, what does Julie Roginsky offer that every other interchangeable liberal voice on TV doesn't already bring to the table? Because I don't see it. No unique takes, no powerful arguments, just the usual rinse and repeat talking points wrapped in emotional appeal. But now she's playing victim, trying to drag Scott down by accusing him of being performative and loud. Like those things are somehow a substitute for being wrong. And then she tries to drop this ominous warning, or ammunious warning, like CNN's legacy is on the line for letting people like Scott on air. Girl, CNN's legacy already fell off a cliff. People remember fury, but mostly peaceful, okay? That was the moment the mask came off. You don't get to act like CNN is still the gold standard for hard-hitting, balanced journalism. And that line about women not being invited back after embarrassing Jennings, yeah. She didn't name names, but she didn't drop receipts. She just threw it out there as if it's a fact or something. That's textbook passive aggressive smear tactics. And she ends up saying Jennings is probably extra hurt because her little Substack post is going viral. But bro, Scott Jennings is probably sitting at home cashing a fat CNN check, sipping coffee, and laughing. This man owns every debate he walks in, and he became a low-key MVP on that network to you low IQ individuals of a liberal mindset you guys have, liberals. So what are we talking about? He gives them actual viewership outside the coastal echo chambers, right? Without him, CNN ratings would tank even harder. Without Julie, nobody would even notice. And that's just the truth. And when you look at it, right, because I want you guys to see the proof that she called him insecure little boy in this little post right here, this blog post. And it says, attacking Jennings, she described him as an insecure little boy who takes to social media after his panel appearances and selectively edit clips to make it look like he owned whomever he was debating. She added that he was too chicken, sugar honey iced tea, to post a whole segment that would expose the truth. Her criticism quickly widening from Jennings to CNN's editorial judgment. Roginsky challenged the network to ask, what is Scott Jennings adding that could not be accomplished by any number of conservative analysts who are capable of making arguments without bad faith theatrics? Roginsky argued, without providing names, that female panelists had noticed a pattern of being suddenly never invited back after embarrassing Jennings before issuing a stark warning about the network's institutional credibility. CNN's legacy is not guaranteed, she wrote, arguing that continuing to platform figures like Jennings amounts to a choice to debase discourse, excuse bad behavior, and signal that being loud matters more than being right. I think Scott Jennings is extra hurt because this is going pretty viral tonight. And this was her posting on X, now known as X, formerly known as Twitter. And if they get rid of Scott Jennings, it's actually going to prove that CNN is a mainstream liberal media who loves to push propaganda. But let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Spread the peace, love, and positivity. Let the love supersede the hate. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.